What makes a Tawny port special? That is the subject of our discussion today. In front of me, I have, you can see this is a beautiful colour. This is quite a typical colour for a 10-year-old Tawny port. You can still see, if I compare, actually I have too many glasses in front of me and too many bottles. You can see that if I try and put it like this, you can see the difference between this is a ruby port and this is the Tawny port. You can see how much colour we've actually already lost in the Tawny port, but it still has a fair amount of redness through it, and this is kind of typical for a 10-year-old. So what is a 10-year-old Tawny port? How is it made? Well, when you make a Tawny port, it's going to be in barrels for minimum of 10 years. So these, with the effect of being in barrel and the slight micro-oxygenation of the wine, you start to develop different characteristics, and it's very, very aromatic. I mean, I can smell this from here, you know, it's really quite amazing. So what happens with this is that you start to get more of dried fruit, so you're getting figs, and there's quite a lot of spice in there, and sort of dried apricots, and it's a nice nutty complexity that starts to develop. So it's quite different from what we experience with the rubies, which are much more fruit driven and much more fresher fruit. So in front of me I have different Tawny ports, and you can see here we have the 10-year-old, which I just discussed. We have 20-year-old here, and we have a 30-year-old here. Now, with each of these wines, it's fairly straightforward. Obviously, 20-year-old has been in barrel for an average of 20 years, and 30-year-old has been in for an average of 30 years. In particular with Grahams, they tend to, although the minimum is 10, 20, 30, they tend to actually go a little bit beyond that. So you can expect that the 10-year-old has actually probably got an average age of more like 14 years, and likewise it's a little bit more average than 20 years within the 20-year-old, and the same with the 30-year-old as well. So when a wine has been in barrel for such a long time, then they develop even more of what we call tertiary notes. So the tertiary notes are really just from being in barrel for such a long time. You get more and more complexity of this, more like nuttiness. So while you've still got some fruit present in the 10-year-old, by the time you get to the 30-year-old, it really is all tertiary. It's all this nuttiness and dried fruits that you're really getting there. And there are really some lovely Tawnies here. The great thing about Tawnies, there's a lot of them that you can explore, and I found this the other day. I absolutely adore this, because the great thing also is that you can also get them in smaller sizes. And I have to see if I can open this. Here, isn't this really cute? I love this. This is great if you're not used to the category. This I think it makes a really great Christmas present, actually. And this is really cheap. It's actually under 100 krona for a little bottle like this, and I think it's really good if you're not used to Tawny ports. These are a great introduction to just get used to explore a little bit more of the category. The great thing about Tawnies is that when you open them, you can keep them for quite some time. So if you don't want to drink it all up at once, or you are going to have several parties over Christmas, don't worry. Our good Tawny will hold the course. You can keep these usually for roughly about 3 to 4 months, and I did say months. They really last quite some time. Just be careful though that you really need to keep them cold, because of and why do you keep them cold? It's basically you want to serve them cold. So these are, because when they warm up, you might feel much more of the alcohol with these. So if you want to really feel the more of the fruit aspect of that, you want to serve them cool. So these are definitely ones for keeping in the cellar, or the coldest part in your house or apartment, and then just bring them up when you're ready to serve. You can also keep them in the fridge if your fridge isn't too cold, that is. And then they're, as I said, they're fantastic. You can really get a lot of mileage out of these. You can enjoy just a little glass with a range of, over several dinners, which is just really fantastic. Now, when I'm going to have port, I actually normally I can never make my mind up as to which one I'm going to choose for that particular night. So I have a little bit of a tendency to have several ports on the table. What I would tend to do, in fact, is I would tend to have a late bottle vintage and probably a 10-year-old, and maybe also I would go for having a 20-year-old. This is in the same 20-year-old on the table, depending. And the great thing about that is if you have dessert, I mean, these are fantastic with like chocolate desserts, but I also like to have some different cheeses on the table. So I usually have a selection of cheese board, combination of hard and soft cheeses, and some blue cheeses, and also dried fruit and nuts. And then the great thing about that is that everybody can choose which one of these that they actually want to try, and then you can just try it with the different foods. And then, you're sitting around the table having lots of fun, telling lots of funny stories, and just basically having a great time. Okay, thank you for watching. See you next time.